Finally, Desh, I want to ask you about your personal philanthropy on two different ends. One is you mentioned Akshay Patra, I was going to come to that anyway. The second about your initiative at MIT, which is doing amazing things. So let's take Akshay Patra first. You and the people with you realize that the poor people in India, rural India rather, didn't want to go to school or couldn't go to school because they have to go and work and eke out a living. So if you could some way provide that food or meal for them, they are willing to go to school. That's how it started.
Right.
And now it's become a case study for many universities. So if you can elaborate a little bit on that and then take the MIT initiative.
Okay. Well, let me sort of put all of them in the right context so that you'll have a feel for it. So, I joined the MIT board about 10 years ago. And so the initiative at MIT is all about trying to see if the $150 billion that we spend can contribute more to the innovation economy. And the way it's done is the faculty and the students at MIT get connected to innovation. So the basic issue is that for innovation to happen, you need good minds. And you tend to put all the good minds together. So when you put them together, they come up with great ideas. And when they come up with the idea the first time, they have no lack of desire to have a big impact. They want to save the world. But very quickly, over the course of time, they get into the business of impressing each other as opposed to the impact. The tenure and publishability, all that stuff. So the question was, how do you make sure that these guys, when they come up with the idea, it can have an impact? And so the Deshpande Center was all about connecting the faculty and the graduate students to relevance. So it's a little bit like moving the innovation cycle about 50 years ahead. Innovation today is where roughly engineering was 50 years ago. 50 years ago, engineers designed the products in a dark room. And then the companies went and hired sales and marketing to actually peddle the product. So the best innovation today is that a professor, after he gets the whole work done, he gets a patent, and then the technology licensing office peddle the patent. So instead of that, what we have done with the center is as soon as they get the idea, they're connected with the marketplace. So as a result of that, finally, by the time they're done with the product, with their innovation, it's more than likely that there's a pull in the marketplace and something comes out of that. So it's really changed the model of innovation. It's a more concurrent innovation. And it's a very simple concept, right? I mean, if you have a good mind, you pose a problem and the good mind solves the problem. So about 5-6 years ago, when I and my wife said, well, what can we do about this in India? The first sort of reaction was to do the same center at IIT Madras, because both Jayashree and I, we both went to IIT Madras, and so we said, oh, maybe we'll do that. But somehow doing nanotechnology in India sounded a little too limiting. So we swung the pendulum all the way the other way around and came up with this concept for social innovation sandbox. So this is an area of about 5 million people. It's north of Bangalore, centered around a place called Hubli. And within this 5 million people, we are funding about 60 nonprofits, 60. So Akshay Patra is one of them. And then we have 10 young men and women from here who go spend a whole year. We get a lot of students from here growing there. And over the course of time, it was very obvious that unless you develop local leadership, you really can't do much. So now that area is massively creative, massively energized. We have 8,000 college students doing 2,000 projects. We have a program for 30 to 40-year-olds to develop leadership within that area and so on. So that whole area has become very, very innovative for social entrepreneurship. So Akshay Patra is one of them. The one right behind that is a program called Agastya, which is to teach science to rural kids. So this year we'll do 700,000 kids, and it's scaling up to 7 million kids in 3 years. Right? The one right behind that is a program to teach farmers how to farm paddy and so on. So there's 60 of them. So the idea here, again, is not, if you just have innovation, it doesn't do much. You need receptacles. You need people who can actually absorb that innovation. So this concept of sandbox is to actually build that local leadership and build the local energy to actually absorb that innovation. So in another 4 weeks, we are bringing this concept back to the United States. So we're starting a social entrepreneurship sandbox in Lowell Lawrence in Massachusetts. Boston is probably the world's intellectual capital for nonprofits. You can think of any idea. There's somebody who's doing it there in Boston because they're just very creative. But then, Lawrence, which is a city right in the town, Lawrence is the 43rd poorest town in the United States. So you say, okay, you have all these ideas, just like a university, and then you say, who needs it the most? It's Lawrence, right? But there isn't a way to get in there. And the reason why you can't get it in there is because you don't have the local receptacles. So we're just teamed up with University of Massachusetts in Lowell and 3 community colleges. So there's 30,000 students. We got Teach for America. We got a whole bunch of very good organizations coming there. And so I'm pretty excited about this. I think this concept of social innovation sandbox, so that you build local leadership to solve problems. And then, of course, you use all the other MITs and the Harvards and all these places to go and help out. I think is an idea that's going to work. In fact, Afghanistan, we spent a lot of money there. And one of the foundations is trying to get the same sandbox going in Afghanistan. So we have a team from Afghanistan coming to India to look at it when we do a conference in January. So I'm pretty excited about this new way of not, it's got a little bit of similarity to MIT. That is, when people get together and think about these great ideas, for them to have an impact, you have to have a way to connect those ideas back to where they're needed. It's either a technological innovation back to the marketplace or a social innovation that needs to get out to the region. So if the sandbox concept works, then I think we can have 1,000 sandboxes in the US, and I think we have a way to beat the problem. So,
Desh, thank you so much for the inspiration.
Great, thank you. Great.